The year was 2019. Magnus Carlsen was the world number 2 at that time, and the first being Hikaru Nakamura in the Blitz Rankings. Two fierce rivals would face off each other in the finals. The World Blitz 2019 had Hikaru and Magnus in a deadlock with 16.5 points each. The championship would be decided in a 2-game playoff. The first game saw Magnus hold Nakamura's Lopez to a draw. The second game of the decider would see Magnus deliver one of the nastiest blows ever. Stick with us to see the move that destroyed Hikaru Nakamura. Magnus opens the match with d4. Hikaru responds with knight f6, knight f3, d4, and we have bishop to c4. This is the London opening which Magnus has deployed successfully in the tournament prior to the playoffs. Hikaru challenges the center with c5, to which Magnus responds with e3. e6 knight to d2, and Hikaru offers his dark squared bishop for Magnus. Magnus accepts the trade and Hikaru takes with his queen. Magnus captures the c-pawn and Hikaru takes with his queen. Magnus challenges the center by playing c4. He takes c4 and Magnus develops his bishop, while capturing Hikaru's c-pawn. At just 8 moves, we have a completely new game that has never been played before. While going for these trades and exchanges, it is quite important to note that Magnus often has the upper hand in end games, and their previous encounters have proved that pretty well. Hikaru decides to castle kingside. Hikaru's pieces on the queen side are barely developed, so castling may not be the best of ideas for Hikaru, a decision that will soon cost him. Magnus brings his rook into action, playing rook c1, lining it up with Hikaru's queen. To avoid any nasty discovered attacks, Hikaru moves his queen to safety, playing queen to b7. Magnus finishes his development with a castle to the king's side. Hikaru plays b6 with the idea of fine-shadowing his like-squared bishop. Magnus responds with queen to d2. Hikaru plays bishop to b7 as expected and stares down the long diagonal towards Magnus' king's side. Magnus plays rook f to d1, bringing both rooks to the center. The rooks on open files are a dominating presence, whereas Hikaru's rooks are nowhere close to the action. Hikaru develops his knight by playing knight b to d8. The only black piece that is even close to being called active is the like-squared bishop, and Magnus tries to trade it off by playing bishop to a6. Hikaru forces the trade, playing knight to c6. Magnus takes the bishop and Hikaru recaptures with his queen, maintaining control over the long diagonal. Magnus plays knight to e5, advancing his knight forward. Hikaru did not like this at all and tried to trade it off or kick it away by playing knight c to d7. However, Magnus had other plans in mind. Magnus plays queen to f3, offering his queen for trade. Hikaru cannot take Magnus' knight because that would hang his queen. At the same time, Hikaru has no interest in trading queens. Hikaru plays the move queen to a6 with a threat to take the a2 pawn. Magnus starts with his killer blows by playing knight to c6. The position seems equal now, but it's just a matter of time till the plan comes along. While giving up the a2 pawn, the knight would be able to cover the b8 and d8 squares, which are potential squares for Hikaru's undeveloped rooks. If Hikaru plays rook to c8, Magnus can respond with a killer move, knight to b7, forking the king and the rook. To avoid this in advance, Hikaru would play king to h8. Magnus decides to bring his other knight into attack by playing knight to c4. Hikaru would think for a while, and with a tinge of hesitation would take the pawn with his queen. Magnus would play g4 to soon kick out Hikaru's knight. Hikaru plays knight to c5, creating an escape route for his knight. Magnus plays knight to d6. This means neither of black's rooks has any place to move. It seemed as if Hikaru gave up defending as he launched his own attack, playing knight to b3. A desperate move to get the game back, but he just shot himself in the foot. Magnus plays rook to c2, queen to a4. Things would only get worse for Hikaru. Magnus plays rook to c8, targeting the queen once again. Hikaru moves the queen to safety. Magnus plays g5, kicking Hikaru's knight out, a move that has been long coming. Hikaru realizes that everything is falling apart. He plays knight to d6, rook to h4, and knight b to c5. If you take a closer look, you could see that Magnus could have ended the game right there. But even the world champion would miss the mate in 3. Feel free to pause the video, take a look for yourself, and comment below if you got it. However, Magnus plays knight takes f7, check. After a few trades, Magnus would be up in material. Hikaru plays rook to f8, in another desperate attempt to catch Magnus off guard, hoping for a sneaky checkmate. Magnus responds with rook to f4, and now we have a mate in 2, no matter what Hikaru does. Hikaru decides to respectfully resign the match, and Magnus would go on to celebrate his third Blitz championship in a row.